Hey there, English student. Have you ever found yourself in a 10 or 15 week set of individual lessons with a teacher and you thought to yourself, what am I doing here? What am I learning? I feel a little bit like I'm in prison right now because I don't know if I'm getting anything out of these individual lessons that I'm paying for. Well, today I want to help you a little bit. I've looked on the internet, I've talked to people. There are a lot of things that can help a teacher become a better teacher. But I looked and there aren't a lot of helps for students. How can a student be a better student? How can a student get the most out of these individual lessons that they're paying for and that are so important for them? I'm Phil from Majak in Brno, Czech Republic. Glad you're here today. First, I have a question for you. Is your teacher a teacher, or is your teacher more of a language helper? And that's important to know. Both are very important to learning a language, and I think both are very valuable. But it is important to know if your teacher has studied English grammar and can really give you meaningful help, or if your teacher is someone who's available for conversation and possibly to help you speak more like a native speaker. Both of those are important, but it's important to know the difference. You don't want to expect your language helper, who hasn't necessarily studied grammar and taught grammar, to tell you all of the grammatical mistakes that you're making. They might not be able to do that. Maybe they can, but they might not be able to. So know the difference between having an actual teacher who has studied and taught these things and someone who is just available for conversation in English. The next thing is commitment. Commitment's important, right? In life, in relationships, but it's also really important in English learning. It is important to be committed to the lesson that you choose, but it's also important to know what kind of a commitment you're getting into. And if you really want to make a long-term commitment with one teacher in one style of lesson, I would suggest even possibly having a meeting with the teacher before the real lessons begin, or maybe asking if there is a possibility of a free lesson to begin, and seeing if this would be a good fit. Relationship-wise, if you seem to get along with your teacher, also talking about the style of lesson that your teacher would have. It's important for you to know what you want out of the lesson, but also important to know what the teacher expects that they will teach you during these lessons, or if they have any expectations. And if it doesn't seem like you're doing the same thing, or it doesn't seem like this is going to be helpful for you, then I think after that first lesson, you could walk away and say, thank you for your time, but I'm not going to make a 10-week commitment to lessons with you or in this style. And you could find another teacher that meets your needs. I know that's a little bit sad, but often it's better to know beforehand, before you have a financial commitment and a time commitment, if these lessons aren't going to be what you had hoped, and even what the teacher had hoped. The next one is just about mindset. You need to be positive about your lessons. Often people are excited to learn, or they have a strong motivation to learn. But it is important to continue to be positive. Every lesson won't be your favorite. It won't be like visiting Disney World every time you have an English lesson. Some will be more difficult. The homework will be possibly challenging. And these are things we want. So continue to be positive about your lessons. Be positive with your teacher. Even give your teacher compliments, and do your best at doing your homework. And when you come to class, bring the best you to the table so that you can give it all that you have, and you can continue to be positive about the growth you're making in your English language development. Next is the idea of taking ownership of your English lessons. This is really important if you have specific things that you want to learn. I know some people are beginners in English, and there are some things that you simply must know before you can get creative with your lessons. There are some things that you need to know about English grammar and conversation and how the words work together that you need to know before you can move on. But if you're at an intermediate level and above, there are probably some things that you want to know. Maybe you need your English lessons for your job. And so there are specific things maybe about emails or about answering the phones that you need to know. Maybe there are some conversations that you need to have and you need some new vocabulary and you'd like to get that from your teacher. So you need to take some ownership of your own lessons and even prepare ahead of time possibly some phrases that you want to know, some questions that you have, some grammar mistakes that you know you're making but you don't quite understand. Bring those to your lesson. Believe me, you could look like a star student because teachers love it when the student comes ready to learn and even with questions, with something prepared that they want to learn. We love to help. Teachers love to help. So when you have something specific to help with, it's great. So be prepared. Take ownership of the things you want to have in your lesson. That might mean that you actually have homework after your lesson, but you also have some homework before your next lesson. And that next homework would be preparing the next set of things you want to learn. You've been repeating and practicing what you learned in the last lesson. Now, bring some new things to add on to that, to present to your teacher and let them help you. The last bit is about your teacher. Now, they're about your teacher, but they're for you. I can say this with a lot of confidence because I am a teacher and I know what's important for a teacher. So these last couple of tips are something you can remember to do. One is simply communicate. Communicate well with your teacher. After that first lesson or even before, make sure you have some good contact for your teacher, whether that's a phone number, email, WhatsApp, whatever is easiest that you can both agree on. And maybe you'll need to communicate scheduling problems, or if you're going to be a little bit late, just communicate that. It's great to know what's going on. Even over communicate. If you think, oh, maybe that's too much, I don't need to write, make sure they know if there's something important. At least for me, I think for many teachers, if you have a question about your homework or some English question during the week, ask them in an email. If that's not okay with your teacher, I'm sure they'll let you know. But many teachers would be happy to get some feedback from you during the week or some questions or problems you have, because we know that that's you working on your English, you practicing during the week, and it's really important. The other part about your teacher is get to know them. I know, no English student is selfish, but when we get in the zone of learning a language, we want to concentrate on our studies and what is going to be beneficial for me. But I know it's going to be helpful for you as well if you make this a conversation with your teacher. And instead of just letting the teacher ask you a lot of questions and the conversation is just one-word answers, practice asking questions back in English. That's something that you don't often get to do in an individual lesson, but what an opportunity, because it lets you practice some English, asking some questions, but it also lets you into the world of your teacher. And it can be a really special friendship that develops between a student and a teacher, but it will only develop if you get to know each other. Good news is you're not studying math together or science. You're studying English communication, English conversation. So what a great opportunity to just ask those questions to your teacher and get to know each other, not just one way, but two ways. I want to take just a second here. If you're watching this and you have had some individual lessons, please write in the comments some good things or bad things about this lesson or these lessons. We'd love to learn from you and learn from each other. We can have a community here that is caring about each other and sharing some ideas for some good lessons. The next tip is something just to think about. When do you want to be corrected in your lessons? And it's important to understand this, and it's important for your teacher to understand this as well. I like to correct students when they make mistakes in conversations after they've finished their thought, and that's something I would do. I would write down some mistakes and some maybe phrases that are wrong or words that are used incorrectly. And then I'll wait until our conversation is finished, maybe even till the end of the lesson. And then we'll take just a few minutes and go over these, and I'll send these corrections to the student or give them to them at the end of the lesson. And it's something that the student can take back with them and remember about how they were speaking. But it's important to know what you want in this regard during your lesson, and have that conversation with the teacher at the beginning of your set of lessons. How would you like to be corrected? And maybe your teacher is used to correcting you every time you make a mistake. If that's okay for you, okay. I think it's better to be able to get that thought out and develop confidence in what you're going to say. But make sure you have this conversation with your teacher early on, so you don't have to have some strangeness with your teacher in the middle of your lessons and have to have that conversation later. Do it at the beginning and talk about how you want to be corrected. Last is homework. Now, I'm not necessarily talking about just taking your notebook and writing a bunch of stuff at home. Be creative about how you're going to study at home, but talk with your teacher about it. Your teacher will have lots of good ideas about ways you can study. Maybe you record yourself speaking a little bit. Maybe you're just speaking into the mirror every day. Maybe it's listening to TV shows, listening to podcasts in English. Maybe there's another kind of practice that your teacher would suggest for you, but do it. Of course, many English students are busy with work and families and lots of other things that are happening. But do you have even 10 minutes a day that you could put toward building your English at home? So when you come back with your teacher, that time is even richer. It's even better. Find that amount of time that you could try to put toward it every day. And I know every day seems like a lot, but don't make the amount very big. Make it 5 or 10 minutes a day and see how your English could improve. If you can do it for 5 or 10 minutes a day for a month or two, make that number go up. Challenge yourself to 15 minutes a day or 20 minutes a day of some type of practice. I think you'll notice that your English will improve faster. And I think you'll notice that your lessons that you're paying for are even better and richer because you spent that time before. Thanks for joining me today. I hope this was valuable to you. There are lots of ways we can grow in our English teaching and English learning. So please write in the comments below what you're thinking about and how these individual lessons have gone for you in the past. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, please subscribe, and that'll help more people find the videos as well. And stay tuned for more things from Majak.